moving on. Number 2, discussion on EMS staffing.
See you.
Thanks, Greg.
Thanks, guys.
You too.
Thank you for being here. Yeah. Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Guys, have a good day.
You too.
I'm sorry to take all your oxygen over here. It's the other way around, sir. I apologize.
That's what I was thinking.
Sorry to bang the same drum. But with 2026, we are dropping down to 2 personnel per day, which is almost entirely our full-time staff, currently of which we have 7. Of that, 6 are able to work. Kurt here is light duty on injury. 4 of our staff are paramedics. He's one of them. 1 paramedic is on each shift, so we have 1 paramedic shifts. If any one of those paramedics, if we have any more injuries, which statistically the lesser people we have, the injury rate goes up. We saw that in 23 and 24. We don't really have a system in place other than mandating a whole bunch of folks, or really straining relationships with neighboring communities, Norway, Rochester, Tishigan, calling them to come in for all of our problems. I do have some call data on that. We're working on 2025, but in 2024, at least 60 times we called for the year for them to handle one of our emergencies that occurred in the village. At the cheapest option of those calls being, hey, you're totally fine, we took your blood pressure. I think that's like a $500 bill that comes out to about $30,000 that we gave away to other communities. If those folks are very sick, or our paramedic does a paramedic level assessment, and if there's a transport on there for those 60 calls, that's about $165,000 that we gave to other communities that could have been in our pocket. I believe 2025, again, I don't have those numbers, but the person getting those for me told me that that number is up for 2025 of giving away our numbers to other communities. I know Zeke, you've kind of mentioned in the past that Lyman's starting to consider feeing us to call his department of Wind Lake, which is the only department that if we call, we're guaranteed a paramedic response. If we call Tishigan, if we call Rochester, that's a waiting game of, well, with Rochester, if they're even able to provide an ambulance.
Yeah, so I think there's a broad, I'm gonna tag in what you're saying, there's a DHS 110 issue that you are required by DHS 110 as a paramedic licensed service to have a paramedic available. You don't have to be in the building, you have to be available to take a call 24/7, 365 for your population size. During COVID, the state relaxed some of those things. I had to send an email to Mark Mandler, it's been several months ago, regarding, what happens if you don't have a paramedic in the building. And Mark's response was, you have an intercept agreement with Norway. Norway is also a licensed service. So what happens if Norway doesn't have a paramedic on duty? Because that has happened several times in the past. It just so happens we did have a paramedic on duty on those days, so not necessarily a legal service problem. But what happens on the day that we both don't have a paramedic? And the answer is, now we're both non-compliant with DHS 110 should that happen. And now you have a different set of problems, which is your conversation becomes, hey, what repercussions does the state want to hand down, if any? So the slap on the wrist, don't do that again, invest the money. Or is it a, hey, we're going to compel you to degrade back to EMT level service?
Right. So like I said, we're about one paramedic being down for the count, for the paramedic level system of PHS 110 from that system collapsing. And with less people on duty for patient movement and the like, the risk of our injury increases significantly. Like I myself, I have a pulled back, and I did an entire shift yesterday. That was very fun to do. I normally would have called in for that shift, but it was not an option. I have 2 paramedics that I can trade with. One of them moonlights, I think every day that she doesn't work for us at Union Grove, her other department, and the other guy has a family with small kids that I'm already like up to the gills in trades with, you know, based on our family. So I have like functionally one guy. I'm going to be working on a mandation proposal for when this system that we have does crack. It's not going to be popular, but it'll keep us compliant in DHS 110.
Can I ask, have we brought in any money? You know, we paid out to others for responding when we couldn't.
No,
Have we brought,
you haven't.
haven't?
We, Tom Kramer and I, when he talked about Lyman, that's one of the fire department leadership up in Norway. Tom Kramer, I called Tom Kramer in I want to say it was 2023, might have been 2022, because we effectively carried them the entire August of that year as their department imploded. And I just said, Tom, this is not working out, that we're paying a lot of money to run 2 crews down here, and we're effectively carrying the town of Norway, which is what precipitated things moving towards a dissolution of the Norway Fire Company and bringing that in-house into the town of Norway as a governmental service. Tom was kind enough sometime later to return that phone call to me to say, hey, Zeke, remember that time that you called and said you're carrying us? Well, now we're carrying you, and you're going to have to step that up, or I'm going to need to take it to our board to send you guys a bill, just like we're doing Raymond. So every time Raymond has to call, Raymond writes a check for $1,000 to Norway. Norway still gets to bill the patient, but Norway's Raymond's $1,000 behind, and Norway's $1,000 ahead. The community should have put all this in place a long time ago, more or less as an official scorekeeping mechanism. You would all probably be further ahead if that were the case.
Well, I'll get right on that. I wasn't here a long time ago, so I'll jump on that. But
Yeah, yeah.
There's a lot
Are you asking, Kathy, have we taken calls from other communities to help them,
Or that they paid us?
Well,
We hadn't
I'm
paid.
saying, I didn't know if you were asking that, or you weren't asking inter-facilities. You were asking, are we taking a call when Rochester needs help,
Right.
and then we're
Well, the
billing
bunker
that. We're
wouldn't
billing
be
that
here
patient.
if we
Yes,
didn't.
so
Excuse me, what?
The bunker wouldn't be standing had we not. What? I don't know.
I don't know either. I just mean I was trying to get clarification. Are you asking if we've helped our neighbors on any calls
And gotten.
and
we billed them.
billed their patients?
No.
Right.
We build our
we
patients,
bill
don't
bill their patients, and that bill is slightly higher through our billing company. There's
But
a lot of flat rates. One of the flat rates is, are you a citizen of the village? Are you not a citizen? So if you're not a citizen, you're from Rochester, we're helping out Rochester, we bill them at a slightly higher rate.
So now let's talk about what that actual impact is for a minute, because I think the money piece is important. You billed in 2025 $1.224 million. So no matter what your rate is, the insurance company says, wad
Right.
up, don't care. We're writing off 698,000 of that, right? Which means that your net charges from 1.224 million drop down to 526 grand, of which you actually only brought in 459 grand. 121,000 was written off as non-collectible, billing error or whatever that is. I think there probably is some juice in the lemon to squeeze here to deal with either your billing company or in-house billing or consolidated billing or just a really good hard look. Todd Terry on the board had to deal with an issue in 2019 or 2020 where your billing company literally took the patient files and stuck them over here in the corner as they were going through a sale over a period of about 12 months and just never sent the bills out. We had to write off, it was like $130,000 of income, and we settled it with the company for like 15 grand. Right? Like, should have never happened. But that's in part because the person that is running your EMS department needs to look at the statement every single month and not just look at it like a care provider, but like a business owner, and ask, what do we bill for? Do we bill for every patient? And then pull a detail on it to figure out what patients didn't we get billed and how are we collecting it. When they're done with EMS billing associates, they go to Waukesha County for collections. Waukesha County can do debt set-off and DMV stop type programs on their any lottery earnings that they're owed or any tax refunds that they would give. So you can intercept those monies and get paid back.
And I've
Could I just, I don't want to get too far off the rails here, because I don't think my question was answered at all, just to be honest. So I'm hearing you publicly state Wind Lake is threatening to charge us for calls because we're becoming too much of a burden on their system.
That's
Just yes or no?
no.
Okay.
That's not a fair statement to make that a present call. That is a
Okay.
call that has occurred in the past, and we have taken some steps to address those gaps.
I just want the black and white to these questions I'm throwing. Just so.
Yep.
So I don't want to get a call tomorrow saying, you know, I'm hearing we're threatening you guys to be helped. I just want the facts.
I would not say a formal threat.
Okay. So to Kathy's question about calls and revenue, in 2026, have we helped either Rochester when they needed help on a call?
Yes.
Have we helped the town of Waterford?
Yes.
Have we helped Wind Lake?
Probably not.
Okay.
in
Have we helped
26.
any of our other neighbors that you're aware of? Not to put you on the spot, just that you're aware of.
No.
You're
Okay.
early in the year. You asked a very specific question.
Yes. Not for the
I-
EMS department.
Okay.
At
And
least, the fire
I can't
department.
control the speed of a calendar year.
Yeah.
We're just where we're at here
Yeah.
on the.
If you ask that same question about 2025, the answer is yes to all of
Okay, and I knew the answer. Again, that's just wanted to make sure that we're publicly having this conversation about, you know, just who's helping who. So to your point, Zeke, of if the leaders in these communities got together and figured out a way to work amongst each other with these services, this would just be an easier spot for all of you, and an easier spot than neighbors saying to each other, we're getting to the point that I'm gonna have to ask you guys to pay $1,000 for calls. Is that what I'm hearing you say? Is that what
So
I'm hearing you say?
currently we're operating under a mutual aid box alarm system,
Yep.
the MABUS system, which is just neighbors helping neighbors. When you have the resources to help your neighbors, you help them when they need help. That kind of makes the system go round. There's not really a need to be charging other agencies directly for these jobs, because again, you're getting billed from the patients. The mention with Norway is more or less like, hey, we're not helping you sometimes. Every time you get a back-to-back call, like we're doing your job for you.
Sure, I understand.
We're going above and beyond with that.
Okay, so just everybody at some point has helped or taken
Yes.
your point of when you were listing the 30,000 rough estimate. We've all taken different amounts that could have stayed in our municipality had we had the adequate staffing. Is that what we're saying here?
Correct.
And since all of us in some capacity don't have the adequate staffing at the simultaneous second call, third call, we have to go to our neighbors.
Correct.
Okay.
And that's money that we leave at the table.
Okay.
So we're gaining money by helping our neighbors, by billing those patients, and we're billing them at a higher rate than we would our own citizens.
Yeah.
It's the times we have to have help come in, that's people we cannot bill for.
Thank you.
We've worked pretty diligently at trying to get these inter-facilities up and running. To go back to Zeke's thing about squeezing the lemon out of the billing company, I got an updated number from our billing company that our average collection rate is sitting at 73 to 75% right now. The other 25% is people that are just non-compliant, not opening their mail, whatever, just difficult. She said that's about the industry standard right now. I'll still be working with her to see what we can do to boost that collection rate. To Zeke's point, if we have to do an in-house collection program, that's an avenue I'm willing to do. I'm just stating that we're pretty maxed out on responsibilities that 2 people can reasonably do in a day. That's fine if we do an in-house collection program, but a lot of other responsibilities are going to have to be sacrificed to make that happen in a day. We started up the interfacility program again. I believe since September to the end of December, we've had 8 whole interfacility calls. I asked our billing company what the collection for that is. They got back to me about 6 calls. I'm still waiting for 2. If we got every cent that we sent out for collections for those 6 calls, it would be $13,437. So we're still grossly shy on interfacilities. There's a whole other healthcare company, Pro Health, that by far and away was our biggest customer when we were doing interfacilities years ago. It was like not even close. It was like 90% of our business came from Pro Health. In the last 9 months, we've had 1 returned email from them. They're not interested in returning phone calls, emails. It's a personal level that I do not understand. I've called doctors of hospitals, like, have you heard anything? Like, why?
I've heard plenty, and I don't know if this is the accurate forum to have this conversation. Because I've been told so many different things. I have a hard time believing some of them, and then I have a hard time not believing some of them, and somewhere it falls in the middle. And there's a lot of individuals in this room that should probably have conversations with me before we decide to have the public aware of it at this moment. That would be the best way I could put that.
Sure.
I mean, I have our suspicions.
Yeah.
Certain things.
Bottom line is we've tried redrumming that business, and that it's just not an avenue. We'll continue pursuing it, but I'm much less optimistic in getting anywhere near the level of business that we're able to get.
So for now, are you working basically with elder care?
With
Care?
Aurora, it's almost all Burlington Hospital.
Okay.
Some of
What
them,
about the new Aurora down on 20?
we've given them paperwork. They've been made aware that we've done it. Maybe 1 from there. Otherwise, it's all
much
been
better staffed in that area. to
right.
respond to
So
calls.
Aurora has all of these hospitals basically have pre-established call lists of who they can call for that. Superior is who they're under contract with, and it's Superior's responsibility to get these patients moved. So we tried working with Superior, so hey, when you can't fulfill your contract because all of your rigs are busy, like, we're available. We're kind of in a catch-22. We're trying to do interfacilities to increase staffing. There's at least 5 ALS, which would be the most lucrative interfacilities that we've turned down because we don't have the staffing. So it's one of those catch-22s, and every time we deny one, that hurts our business in the future because now we're seen as unreliable. So the lack of staffing's hurting our case in that regard. As far as going back to the DHS 110, we have FAP grant money that we can use every year for continuing education. We can use that on props, we can use that on training, seminars, conventions, whatever it is. I would like to see to send our full-timers once per year to go to paramedic school, and then they get paramedic certified. It doesn't fix the problem, it's just an additional safety layer. As far as like actual 911 performance and safety, we're kind of still where we're at, because if me and Kurt are both paramedics, one of us still has to drive, one of us is still gonna be alone in the back, so I only have my paramedic help for half the call, so it just helps with trades, injuries, and the like.
Sending
And
the person to paramedic school will pull out of the education budget.
right,
FAP will still use, last year I used it to take a decent chunk out of the fleet's repairs, because ambulances just seem to want to break down. So we did it on that. The training equipment we got towards the end of last year, that'll fall under this year's FAP budget. So I think we went over those numbers. So that's how we'll handle that.
the reduced staffing is inhibiting us from getting more interfacilities, which would generate more money. It's inhibiting us from handling back-to-back calls, which is a loss of revenue in our department. It's also limiting our amount of training that we're able to do in a day. So in 2022, our annual training hours were 3,763 hours. In 23, that dropped to 1,270. In 24, that dropped to 638 hours. This year, I've been pushing it pretty hard since joining Kurt at the helm, and we got that up to 666 hours. So every year that we've started dropping staffing, which was in 2023 under Hafman, we've about halved our training hours every year, because there's just not enough time in the day. With two people, you know, somebody like my shift, I have to run the department, and my partner has to check out the ambulances, and by the time we're done with that, it's 4 p.m. and you know, we haven't even all the calls in the in-between. We still have to scrub the toilets, we still have to cook the meals, we have to, you know, there's just nobody else to do any of the work or help set up with the trainings. I'm working with, as reasonably allowed, setting up community programs through the department to try to help with community involvement. We have plenty of programs that we've had in the past that have utterly sat on a shelf collecting dust. Car seat installation, we sent people to be certified with that. I don't think we've ever installed one car seat. Advertising for that.
Andrew is. He's the only one that's certified.
Right.
Probably Andrew's kid. I'm joking about that.
You know, somebody at Waterford Moms just requested that the other day.
Yeah.
We're certified
Andrew
to
put
do
in
that,
a lot
and
of them, last year.
we're happy to provide those services, but again, we're so limited by the two people that, you know, we're up to our eyeballs trying to survive, let alone go above and beyond. We're still gonna try to go above and beyond, but public CPR class is another one. We have in-house resident CPR instructors. That is a great benefit to all of us in a department. We don't have to really spend outside money getting certified in CPR. There's no reason that we couldn't extend that out to the public. Stop the Bleed program for first aid, offering that to the public. So we're working on that as well. We're just letting you guys know that, you know, without an increase in staffing somewhere, the problem's gonna get worse. It's gonna break at some point.
So what I heard you say is there's 4 paramedics. One's on light duty. That gives you 1 on each shift. So what do you do if somebody wants to take vacation?
That's instant. Somebody's gonna have to overtime it. I had to work a lot of overtime last year because we had one paramedic go on light duty, and the other one got married and took the entire month off.
So, the wonderful overview, right, of kind of where things are from the department level. Kudos for pulling together the numbers to be able to talk about things. The one piece, and I'm gonna make a correction on something that I think Dalton said. Dalton said that he's got 7 full-time employees, and that's one short. You've got one additional full-time employee right now, making 8. So you're paying for 2 more people than you have a sustainable revenue source to support, which is a chunk of your deficit at the moment. The personnel committee at some point should have a closed session to follow up with Adam and or Todd Terry and or Tammy to discuss one of those and what the disposition may or may not be, and then you have some decisions to make about what you're going to do with one other staff person. You can choose to leave things as they are. Administratively, what I've done is frozen hires. So as people have left, we haven't backfilled those positions. And that was designed to sort of let things change over a longer time period to not make things so jolting, but ultimately you are spending cash on hand to sustain, those positions. At some point, Kirk comes back off of light duty. You then have, 1 crew of 3 and 2 crews of 2 to make up your 48-hour shifts. And, when that happens, one of the things that you should consider is, are you going to either A, through attrition, somebody leaves, just freeze that position out as I've left it, or are you going to lay somebody off to accelerate that process?
We have had one of our full-timers leave already, and we do have
2. Yeah.
correct, and we have another full-time employee that's been consistently looking for work elsewhere, so it's only a matter of time before
Yeah.
he gets a job offer, he accepts, and now we're down to then technically 7.
Yeah.
So good addendum on that, Zeke.
So with the one that left, we now have 7, or if another one leaves, we'll
You
have 7?
had
We have 8
10.
currently.
At one point you had
Functionally,
10.
we have 6.
Yeah.
If one leaves, we will have technically 7. Functionally,
5.
5.
And then you got a problem.
Right.
You got a real problem, and that's who's working OT and what does the burnout look like, and
It's already
there.
It's already here. It's already sky high. We understand that there's a finite bucket. We're a business that, we all believe that it can't fail. So we're gonna do whatever we can to make it happen. We're just making you aware.
Part of why we're here, having this at a committee level, is Adam, I think, brought this up some meeting, I don't recall which meeting, but different parties have taken a crack at dealing with fire and EMS as an issue. We've discussed contracting it out to a third party. We've discussed contracting with our neighbors. I've taken various cracks at it in iterations. Don Houston has, and now it's sitting here because it's still not done, right? And it's this big complex thing that it takes a while to understand. That's part of why we started the conversation with DHS 110 last meeting. And I apologize for having you guys read the whole thing, but it's all interrelated. And it's not fair. From 8.5 years of being here, it is not fair to Dalton, and it is not fair to Rosie, and I realize Rosie's not here tonight to say, hey, go and figure it out without the resources to be able to actually figure it out. It is a Sisyphean task to try to solve a problem that you are inadequately resourced to manage. Dalton, I don't know how many hours of OT you pulled in the last 12 months, but
I've
It's a
held
lot.
the I think I've held the station work record for the last 10 years, 9 years.
So the conversation that really I think you all need to have is, one, when Dalton develops this plan, it's on Dalton to present it to you. It's your job to look at it and say, yes, Dalton, we are going to mandate an OT or a callback policy, and take that pressure off of Dalton, because it's not on him to do that. It's on you all to say, as an employer, this is what we want you to do. So when Dalton goes back to implement it, he's able to have a conversation which says, look, guys, this isn't me. This is the personnel committee that's saying this is how this has to be. So take that pressure off of it. Likewise, when you talk about service level, Dalton saying, hey, we need to take some of the fat money that we receive or other monies that we have and send folks back for paramedic school. No, it doesn't expand your overall staffing, but it does take some of the pressures off and potentially leave you in a better place for compliance with DHS 110, because you'll have more opportunities to use that mandated system to spread that workload out over more people. Ultimately, you're going to end up having a conversation at this committee level and then at the village board level, because what you're doing is not sustainable over the long run. And at some point, if you continue to run as you're running, you will have a hard conversation with Kevin Mullen, your financial advisor, and Michelle Van Hey, your treasurer, and she will say, I'm unable to write checks this month because I don't have the cash on hand to be able to meet payroll. How would you all like to handle that? That's where you're headed right now. So does that mean you're going to do short-term operating borrows from the bank? The school's doing it this year, right? This is not an uncommon problem across the state of Wisconsin right now. You aren't in the position to have to do that because you do have a cash buffer, and you have had good income, and you have taken proactive steps. Are you going to go to referendum and talk about a tax increase to support EMS? Last time we took this out as a survey, our residents came back, I'm going to call it slight majority, saying no, we wouldn't support a 12% tax increase to, sponsor more EMS. But there was a lot of negative press around fire and EMS at the moment. Whether it was directed at me or directed at the board doesn't really matter. People just kind of remember, hey, there was this bad thing going on, and why would I fund that? There needs to be a more cogent conversation with the public about why more funding is needed. The public, in my experience, has repeatedly pinned it back on the village president and just said, how come you can't consolidate it like by waving a magic wand with all the other communities? And God knows a bunch of folks have tried over the years, and I know you're still trying. But
Did 3 hours ago, yeah. We do it every day,
it's not that easy.
and until certain individuals across different communities are willing to just actually do it, we can't keep talking about it.
Well, it's difficult when you have two private companies next to you.
Those leaders in those communities I respect very much, but they need to
Well, then,
Deal with
think
that.
outside the box. Can we work with Norway? Can we work with?
We
You do it
can,
right
and
then.
it's I don't want anybody to have the misconception that anything isn't, friendly between everything works well, everything's friendly. It's just things that Norway has to consider with the amount that they help us out.
What I'm saying though is if Michigan and Rochester are independent companies,
Right.
but we have a municipal company with Norway or Wind Lake,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe another neighbor on the other side, I don't know.
So discussing more like a merger.
Yeah, doing a district with those that are municipal,
I think
is my
functionally,
point.
You're not going to see any operational cost savings doing that because of the service area and where you have to travel for hospital transit times and the frequency that we get overlapping calls. And if you guys disagree with me, then say it. But
I think there's a big hole with we're paying for 8 people and we're getting the services of 6 people.
that's
If I
probably-
can get 8 out of 8 staffing, what I'm paying for, that's a huge win. If I can get just one person to supplement that, I'm not asking for like a paramedic. You give me a fresh out of high school EMT, give them $50,000.
So problem number one
I
is
just need
stem the
one
losses.
more exactly.
Right.
Right.
So I think, again, I'll ask a question for consideration of the committee. Do you want to continue along the administrative policy of we are freezing any positions that leave, or do you want to take more expedient action? Those are the choices.
I would recommend a freeze. Like I said, we already have people looking for a way out. I think expediting that would only serve to lower morale.
Disagree, and just what does the committee think?
As a committee member and as the village president, I would expedite a closed session meeting for this committee as soon as possible. It's probably a little disappointing there wasn't one on it tonight.
I requested one.
It doesn't matter why or how, just saying let's, the group that's here, that's all I ask of you is expedite another meeting as quickly as possible, and that conversation that Zeke did bring up, that has been brought up, there does need to be an update on that in closed session with the personnel committee.
Yeah, let me be clear on that one. You need to have a conversation under 19.85 regarding performance of a particular individual and consider possible disciplinary action. Yeah, you have to list it.
I know better than anybody that has to be listed and said word for word. Absolutely. So I would just ask Madam Chair to try to schedule that with this group sooner than later. And I think it's very evident the conversation, we're not here to ever pit departments against each other, but we have currently one department talking about different types of benefits that they're looking for, and we have one department here telling us that our public safety and emergency services are at the breaking point.
Right.
So again, I'm one voice, but you start asking me where we currently need to be. I totally respect both departments, but public safety and the brink of some type of serious situation there versus cell phone reimbursement, trucks going home, certain things. Not that those are not important items to that department. This committee's got to get very serious about the direction that they want to go with funds. Or potentially, Tammy, when you're talking about the budget being, set for the year, potential budget amendment to address things as the year goes on.
Sure.
So,
And
that would be my 2 cents on both of those topics.
in case if it's not known to the committee, I know I'm EMS director, but we both also hold fire certs. So the full-time staff for the EMS department is entirely cross-fire trained, and they are the first one on any fire apparatus. When there's a fire for our village, a structure fire, the rest of the fire department is volunteer. We have to wait for DPW to come supplement the already on-duty EMS crew.
Dalton, just because you weren't here for last meeting, if a fire call comes in Monday through Friday at 10 a.m., who are you getting to show up?
EMS.
DPW and
Okay.
EMS,
So, quantity, how many and who?
maybe 2 basic entry firefighting certified people from DPW.
Okay. And if that's on a weekend, how many are you getting?
I have no idea. That is a weekend to weekend.
From January
variable.
1st to now, how many have you gotten?
I don't have 2025 with me. I have 2024, but
Okay. The point that I'm trying to make is it's a volunteer
Yes.
system, and that's
The-
all going to show up on ISO ratings. at
the
some point.
the more EMS department is supplemented, you're also bettering the fire department, and vice versa. Like we're very intertwined departments still. We operate very extremely closely. So, helping the EMS department also raises the safety concerns of the fire department, and you're expediting that as well. One thing that doesn't involve money for a welcome change of pace is
Dalton, before you go there, can we get an answer out of the committee on the question that I asked?
for the freeze or the
I heard Adam's opinion, I just didn't hear the rest of the committee and what they wanted to do and some kind of motion to that effect, so we'll get it in the minutes.
To answer more clarifying to the question, my answer would be a freeze until the next conversation is
Yeah, that's
had.
what I got out of.
Okay, just want to clarify that in case anybody didn't understand that.
All right, raise hands if you're in agreement with the recommendation from the EMS director and the village president on a freeze, should anybody leave.
I think it needs more conversation. It's a tough one. If we freeze, somebody leaves, you're down another person. How is that gonna help the situation?
it's not. And with 2026, we've also almost completely iced out our part-time personnel. The only real viability to use from our part-time pool is when somebody gets sick. So thank God today was a perfect example of that. Our C shift shift leader, who's also the paramedic, who's also the fire lieutenant, had a family emergency. We did have a part-time paramedic that was able to step in. That's about the greatest extent of our part-time pool that they're able to get, unless they want to do an on-call stipend role, which is $40 for 12 hours of either being in the radius of the village, or if they exceed, quick response time, they have to stay in the station. So we have some folks that, for the love of the game, are staying for 24 hours for an $80 stipend, just in case if a back-to-back call happens, just in case an interfacility call happens, we have staff that is ready to field those calls.
So being clear, you don't have the revenue to support that either, right? So even that $80 amount is beyond what you can afford, the revenues you have coming in. Back to your question about what about, the answer is, if you don't freeze that position, that would mean that your department head is gonna go out and advertise for, interview, and hire a full-timer to replace the one that left. And then how do you handle that going forward? In other words, you're still FTEs heavy, right? So you're still back at 8 FTEs with funding for 6. No funding for anything significant part-time other than like parade duty, and no funding for those stipends that Dalton was talking about. You budgeted $42,000 for interfacilities calls. You're not going to get $42,000 this year, but you're clocking against that. So you're going to have this hole in your balance sheet that at the end of the year you're going to need to do a budget amendment to fill, taking cash on hand and replacing what's negative in that fund. I'm not saying don't go, but don't fill it, Ralph. I am asking, under what circumstances do you hire that person? Do you tell them up front, hey, this is a full-time temporary position, and we're bringing you in on a limited term 6-month appointment, and thank you for 6 months of service. You may find somebody looking for that. Do you compensate them at a higher rate for that? Do you go out and contract that one role with an independent provider? And I don't have the answer for you. This is why it's a political thing.
And I don't want to have to say this again. I've said it publicly, and I just am going to put it out there, because at the end of the day, we're here to make sure our residents are protected and taken care of. And one thing I think is very evident in all my conversations with people is they love all of you guys, but they also really do not care who's helping them save their life when they're having their heart attack. So that being said, the unfortunate part where I'm at, and finance is at, and the village board is at, is if we can't figure some of these things out for the 30th millionth time, contracting this all out is an option that former President Houston squawked at, certain trustees squawk at, but at the end of the day, it's an option out there that unfortunately has to be talked about. So Zeke's right, not saying you totally eliminate and replace, but is that one person, maybe a contracted individual? I don't know. It's just, we are getting to the point that, to Zeke said earlier, everybody in this community has tried to put their hands together to wrap their arms around this problem, and the problem stayed the same.
It's compensation versus motivation. The last time you had this problem somewhat solved, you had one very highly motivated individual for, as Dalton described it, the love of the game, that gave up, paid for European vacations with his family, and paid for bike vacations with his college roommate to protect his community. And the guy's genuinely a hero to me. But since that leadership left, you haven't had that. You cannot compensate to care. You can compensate to do a job.
And that set a level of expectation that was phenomenal, in a variety of ways.
Sure.
You want to bring in interfacilities. That set a tone with interfacilities, thinking you could bring in $320,000 a year, which is that's a moonshot. And the unfortunate part is that's when I also became a trustee, and I saw everybody around me. They gave whatever that individual wanted because the results he was providing were there. And we set, unfortunately, I feel, this tone and this expectation that we've just not been able to figure out.
I've got one other piece that I think the committee ought to have, and that's the entire labor market around emergency services has changed. If you go on the Wisconsin Municipal League website right now, you will find least a dozen, if not more, police officer help wanted ads. Nobody wants to be a cop in the environment that we are in right now. It's not fun being a cop. There was a time when if you wanted to be a fire medic or firefighter, whatever the role was in public safety, you had to join an eligibility list in Wisconsin, and that meant your name went on a list of maybe 400, 1,000 people, right? Whatever it was. And as all those people cranked through the system as qualifying or not qualifying, or hey, I've moved on to other dreams and hopes, you maybe got your shot. Chief Rick Mueller once shared when he went to work for his first full-time firefighting job, there were 400 applicants for 8 positions. It is the exact opposite of that. And it was that way when I came out of high school too, right? I mean, there were huge numbers of applicants for a very limited number of positions. You have seen departments decrease hiring standards in order to just get bodies in the door, and it's just a different marketplace. The idea of a volunteer department is really going to be this pleasant thing of a bygone era that we wish that we still had. Having gone through Firefighter 1, you used to not have to do that. You're a firefighter, you just did your training at the station, and the system changed. Firefighter 1 was hell at 43 years old going through it. You're not going to get 43-year-olds going to do all the stuff that I had to do to go through that. It was an interesting experience. Let alone an 18-year-old kid that's trying to work 2 jobs. So, you're lucky for the volunteers you have. I do think you're talking sincerely about compensation in order to solve the problem. And that functionally is a problem of politics with the resident out here who does want to be kept safe. There's an expectation gap. The expectation is, but I'm paying a lot in taxes. Okay, well, that freebie is gone unless, right? There was a time not that long ago that the way communities provided fire service was they parked the engine in the building and said, go get it, go put out your fire, it's there. And, that it's not modern firefighting, but it's a conversation point that the politicians and committee members need to have with your respective social circles to go, hey, look, we've tried to do the freebie thing, unless you're personally willing to volunteer to go through the 90-hour hazmat ops and Firefighter 1 training program to put on the gear and go in, or the, let's call it 240-hour EMT program to get an EMT license, plus the annual ongoing BLS CPR certification. I think it's a 60-hour license renewal cycle of continuing ed. You're not going to get those volunteer pay rates that you've enjoyed, which ultimately means you're back to a conversation about increasing revenue via taxes or increasing revenue via fees. Your fee structure suggests to me strongly you're not going to get it through fees. It's not there. We've raised rates. So Dalton, I think doing paramedic training is a good start. You got money in the budget. I'd like for the committee to have a discussion on that, but I'd still like an action on freeze or not. Do you want to back to fill part-timers to the extent that he can? And OT for what he can?
That was gonna be my suggestion, is if you have a full-timer that leaves, backfill with part-time
And we'll
until we can figure it out,
We'll-
because I know a referendum is being discussed.
we'll do our best. Our part-time pool it's drying up,
I think OT has to be
especially
part of it, though.
OT is definitely going to be a large part of it.
Oh, we only have what, one
It'll-
part-time paramedic?
Instead of part-time, it'll be OT forward with part-time when it's able to fill in.
That's a realistic
Yeah.
description.
So I'll work on getting a policy in place for what that mandation looks like. To you guys.
Becky?
I mean, I'd have to go with what the experts here say, so, I mean, if you think we should freeze, then we should freeze.
Laura?
I would have to go with the experts as well, because I don't know what the other option would be.
Go to an operating borrow, raise taxes. But I mean, that's really your only
Well,
other
we
option.
can't make that decision.
You would make it as a recommendation to the village board, right? And you can make that recommendation, so we recommend an operating borrow.
I think we need a
tax
closed
rate
session before we can discuss that.
Yeah.
For You can't do that in closed session. That's an open session item. You can talk about a single individual in a closed session, but the rest of it is public conversation. Okay.
Which we're doing, right?
That
We're
would-
setting
I-
that up.
I-
You're as the chair setting.
That
up.
would be my just request to Madam Chair, as soon as you can gather the committee,
Is anybody available next Monday?
whatever you guys can do.
That would be February 2nd.
I am not.
We're not. You do the 3rd?
I'm going until
Oh, you're gone.
I can't do it.
Do you have any availability later this week?
You guys are only available at night, right?
Yeah, I'm available. Okay.
I'm only available in the evenings.
Wednesday.
I can't do Wednesday, and I can't, I'm in a retreat from the 29th through the 1st, so. So that leaves tomorrow.
You can't
Otherwise,
get a notice out.
yeah, we can't do that either. You're gone for the whole month of February? Are you able to call me?
Yes.
So is everybody else on the board available on the 2nd?
Zeke is not available on the 2nd. I think you guys can handle it without me.
That's fine. I can do some things around for the 2nd.
You do 5:30 again?
Yeah, 5:30 work for you, Becky? Kathy? Adam?
Yep.
Okay.
So I've got one closed session item notated. What else do you want?
Actually, it'll be 2 closed session items, because
Okay.
we also have to work on a job description for your replacement.
Okay, that. We'll follow up on that one. Maybe that is,
Well, yeah, because we have to discuss salary.
yeah.
So with that, I'm giving you guys something to look over. You already have it. Okay, I'll give a copy.
Oh, is that the one I sent?
Yeah, okay, that's a drafting homework for the next closed session. I'm working on that. Adam will give you yours on the way out.
Sure, no problem.
Is there any more discussion from Kurt or Dalton?
Quickly, I'd like to propose to the committee a restructure of how the organizational ranking structure for the EMS department works. I have something for everybody to look over. Currently, Kurt is the service director for the department. I am the EMS service director for the department. I don't know if that sounds confusing to you guys, but it sounds confusing to some of our guys. You know, some of my mail ends up in his mailbox and vice versa. So this flow chart is much more compliant with the ICS national standard of unity of command. Everybody has one clear boss.
We discussed it. Consensus.
This is what you're proposing or what we currently have?
This is what I'm proposing.
Okay.
So me and Kurt are kind of both at the top at the same level.
Uh-huh.
This would simplify to, you have a director and then you have a deputy director.
What's the difference in duties between the two?
You want me to cover that?
Yeah.
So under DHS 110, it does have it separated between EMS director and service director. EMS director does day-to-day operations, deals with the crew. Service director does all the admin. I currently do all the admin, aside from the access for FAP and LCAs, which is under his for the EMS, or the DHS Wisconsin site. Otherwise, that's why we would have it simply as director, deputy director, as he is personnel. I am to make sure everything keeps running smoothly, apparatus, rigs, all of that is up and running. He's with the people.
Okay.
So then it would just flow up that chain.
So you would be service, he's deputy, and then we have shift commanders, is that right?
So right now, EMS service, we're both directors, but we'll fall under. I'm gonna put service director. I messed it up. 'Cause technically, that's me.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is
Yeah,
that
this
where you
would
want?
this would change the internal wording of it. That would clear up the confusion internally at the department. In which the proposal, hopefully I made it clear when it was me, you, and Zeke in the office last
That's
couple
what I
weeks ago,
thought.
where
That's
it
what
would
I
be
thought.
you as deputy director.
Yeah, that's what I thought it was.
Yeah.
I didn't even see the service director when we went over the paperwork.
Oh. Yeah, the service director at the top, whether the verbiage is EMS service director or just service director, or if it's just director, is literally just verbiage play for me. I don't care what the names are. We don't have one person at the top currently. We have two people at the top. That's confusing. This breaks it down into an additional line that's easier to follow. That's all I'm proposing. I don't care what the names are.
Yeah, we just have different, although you'll put it online as two individuals, we have different functions,
Correct.
which is how it should be.
So Dalton, you report to Kurt.
In this proposal, as Kurt does admin supportive functions, I would have Kurt report to me as a service director.
Oh.
Huh?
Well, broader conversation.
So do you wanna discuss it now, or?
It's gonna be past me, so so as I do the count on what's here, I'm counting 8 positions. Right, and we have funding for 6 positions.
Yes, so with this flow chart, there's going to be overlap. So in this flow chart, I would be service director as well as the B shift commander. The deputy director could also be the A shift commander. There's overlap there.
So I would just suggest that we do a little bit of a redraft that shows those as consolidated positions, not independent positions, right? So it would be like in that chart, A shift commander, service director / A shift commander.
Sure.
And then, whatever B or C, whatever it ends up being, so that when you count out the positions, it's like, wait a minute, it's not 8 positions, it's 6 positions, and this is the command structure for that.
Yeah, we can redraft that.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you wanna ask about the chiefs or no?
What are your thoughts on reconsolidation of fire and EMS?
I'm not against it. I don't see nobody's told me the immediate benefit of the reconsolidation in this point in time.
In your opinion, what qualifications, if there was a reconsolidation to take place, would a fire chief need to work hand in hand with EMS? Does that need to be a paramedic licensed person? Does that need to be an EMT licensed person? Does it need to have any medical certification at all?
I think that medical certification would be a requirement. I would recommend that it be a full-time fire chief position, whether it's at a basic EMT level or paramedic level. I don't so much care about. It would be neat if they were paramedic, but even as an EMT, that would grant a great understanding of the medical system.
So now I'm gonna ask you a different question, which is if you had to redesign a system that involved reconsolidating the 2 departments and you still only had the funding to manage 6, possibly 7 full-time personnel, does that person need to be EMT qualified or paramedic qualified?
They would need to be paramedic qualified.
Right. So that's the math out loud that I see in my head when I talk about.
Right. I'm not opposed to immediate EMT help. Like, bodies are more important than paramedicine right now. We can manage with that. We can send people to paramedic school with grant money. But immediately as it stands, that person would have to be paramedic.
All right, any other discussion? Do you need a motion for?
Be
What
great
we
to get a
discussed?
motion on the freeze.
Yeah.
You know?
All right, would anybody like to make a motion that, the director recommended a hiring freeze should any of his staff leave?
I make a motion that we hiring freeze, am I saying that? Hiring freeze for any
That sounds about right.
employees that
For full-time employees.
full-time employees.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. I think we need one more motion.
Motion to adjourn?
7:51, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.